18th, 2017 to order. We do have a quorum, and the meeting was properly posted.
Yes.
Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item, item 4, is public appearances, and this is public's opportunity to speak about any subject that is not a specific agenda item. I don't believe we had any tonight.
These are all.
On an agenda item? Okay. Item 5 is discuss and consider the minutes of the regular village board meeting of December 4th. Any comments, questions, or corrections?
I move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the minutes of the December 4th board meeting as presented. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Item 6, unfinished business. Discuss and consider the 2018 Colonial Club Senior Activities Center Agreement. I believe you should have had that in your packets. I'll let Lee talk about that. If you have anything to add?
The major item that was added was an insurance provision, which I thought was in there. I would have sworn it was, but it wasn't, and so we added that. And there were a couple of other small changes, but basically it's the same document with the insurance provision added.
Okay. And this is basically a contract for services?
Yeah, they essentially provide the senior services to the village, and then if you remember last year, I think last year or the year before, we put in the obligations of Colonial Club, had them set forth on page 1 and 2, so that there was something to measure those by, and as I understand it, they've met those.
Okay. Any comments, questions from board members? If not, I will move to approve the 2018 Colonial Club Senior Activity Center Agreement.
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second to approve the 2018 Colonial Club Senior Activity Center Agreement. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Next item is discuss and consider the 2018 Youth Services of Southern Wisconsin Incorporated Agreement. I believe this is our Pure Court agreement from Briar Patch Youth Services.
The same revision was made in here, adding an insurance section, and for some reason in my cover memo it just says article blank, and staff should have put in article 8, but they didn't, so I will. But other than that, it's the same contract with the same minor revisions and that section added.
Okay. Any questions, board members? Does somebody want to make a motion to approve that?
I'll make a motion to approve the second agreement.
Okay.
Youth services.
Motion by John and second to approve the 2018 Youth Services of Southern Wisconsin Incorporated Agreement. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. 6C is report on impact fees by MSA. There's a memo in your packet, but Mike is also here to talk about it.
At a prior board meeting, I had presented the report in this format, and I was directed to get an update on the communities and what changes had occurred since 2011 or 12, the last time we checked into it with them. And really, there's a lot of tables here of information, but when we get down to Appendix C2, it runs through what are the impact fees that communities have in the area for different types of development, including single family, and then three commercial developments on how do the communities around Cottage Grove compare on those items where impact fees are being used. And that pretty much kind of shows where the different communities come in on that. And so as you can see, if you have a hotel, a restaurant, convenience store, gas station, single-family residence, you know, what's being collected in the area. One thing that I was asked to look at too was in Sun Prairie, for instance, under Public Works, a lot of their impact fee is put under Public Works because it's actually their transportation impact fee.
This is presentation, actually not a discuss and consider item. Any comments or questions from board members on what can and cannot be considered an impact fee and used for? I think it's pretty straightforward. I appreciate the information.
Sure. It seems like we are missing the boat a little bit in comparison to other communities and what they're collecting.
I feel that too, like, you know, when you look at the end at Wanakee and it has 1,500, that's what they have for disclosed impact fees. Some of their, they had on there that they have hookup charges instead of impact fees, and some of those depend on what size water meter and that sort of thing. But actually, you know, as far as actual impact fees are being used, I guess that table shows what they have. There are other types of fees you can have from, for instance, in Sun Prairie, what wouldn't be shown is before you even get to the point of having a developed plat, and now you're talking about collecting these at building permit, there's every community has different levels of what they might charge the developer before you even get to an impact fee. So we used to call that an exaction and different things as far as, you know, if we have a basin and we're going to charge for an interceptor sewer or something, you could take this whole service area for that interceptor sewer and then have a gross acreage. And so when somebody develops a 40 out of that 200 or 300 acres, you could charge each developer, you know, to pay that sewer back. And so while they may not have a sewer and water impact fee, or it may not be look as high as the villages, they may be collecting it upstream of that with the developer.
Okay.
So I can tell you we helped with Sun Prairie's west side interceptor fee, and then they had the far west side interceptor fee. And Smith's Crossing out there off of 151, a lot of development going on. The right side as you're heading out to Sun Prairie. That development had both interceptors, and depending on where in that development you were developing, the developer had to, before starting a phase, pay either the west side impact fee or the far west side impact fee. And then, of course, where all the commercial development is happening outside of 151, beyond to the west, that's all on the far west side impact fee. And when that happened, the developer would pay something in the order of magnitude of $2,000 to $2,500 per acre of raw development land.
Okay. So that was ahead of the building permit rather than
Yes.
the building. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, as an example, Gaston Road in theory could have been partially paid for by impact fees if we had those in place, because it's the growth in that part of the community that's created that use, correct?
Yes, and it's still.
And now everybody in the community is paying for that through higher water utility bills.
Well,
Impact fees will pay back a good portion of that debt.
yes, that's still planned as impact fees. We could assess it to be a different impact fee, you know, for that area that's being served. And when we talked to Baker Tilly about that, she indicated that, the representative indicated that, yes, we could do that, but then we'd probably take a little bit of something else like Main Street out of that particular one, and the net would be a little higher than the normal water impact fee for that area. So there's still that opportunity to do that, as most of that development hasn't happened yet. So.
Any other questions for Mike? Thank you. Next item is discuss, deliberate, and vote on the village ratification of the tentative agreement reached between the Village of Cottage Grove and the Wisconsin Professional Police Association Law Enforcement Employee Relations Division for a successor collective bargaining agreement.
Jack had asked, we can take this up later in the meeting.
Okay.
Attorney Westcott will be here about 7:45 tonight.
Okay.
I mentioned to him with the looks of the agenda, it would have been better timing wise to take that later in the agenda. We could
Okay.
get to the Casey's item since we're anticipating people being here for that.
Sure. If that's okay with everybody, we'll move that down the agenda. All right. So we skip 7B also then?
We can take, I mean, those won't take a lot of
Okay.
time. I was just thinking that item might take some time.
Yeah. All right. So 7B, discuss and consider Resolution 2017-20. This is a resolution authorizing the village treasurer to write off $1,426.05 in delinquent personal property tax. Looking at the memo, is that a business tax? Or is that a, I was just trying to, is Deb here? Oh, there's Deb. Okay.
So as you see in the resolution that was attached, personal property tax is self-reporting, and it's for tax on items inside your business, not real estate tax. And it's, like you said, it's self-reporting, but during settlement, we are not made whole. So then, if it's not paid, I invoice them monthly in the hopes that they'll pay, but there's no recourse going after a business if they don't pay. Last year, I had cleaned it up because it had been, nothing had been written off for quite a few years. And then starting a process going forward where I keep 2 years balance out there. And so what the amount is that I'm requesting this year is for the personal property tax that wasn't paid for 2014 only.
Okay, so this is 1 year.
Mhm.
Okay.
Deb, is this the same business as last year?
They usually are, same handful of businesses.
Okay.
I have a question on, just why can't we collect this? It's a tax. Why can't we collect it?
Because I have no way of going back. I have no, for instance, if you don't shovel your sidewalk, I can put that on your real estate tax, but this I cannot put on real estate tax. So outside of knocking down their door, which I'm not a collector, I don't have any way of going back after them and making them pay.
Then I have a comment just on the resolution. There's a whereas clause here that states that going forward, delinquent personal property will be maintained to include only the balance from the prior 2 years with older delinquencies written off on a yearly basis. I noticed that's in a recital section, it's not in the section where we're actually approving as part of the resolution. If we want to have it in there, I would make the suggestion that we also include that as something that we're resolving to approve tonight. I personally don't like it. I think that there should be accountability where you would come back each year and ask us to do it, whether we write it off. Because this is stating that only the balance for the prior 2 years with older delinquencies written off on an annual basis. But that's not included in what we're resolving to approve tonight as part of the resolution. What we're resolving to approve tonight is just writing off the 1426.
So we can really move this language or copy this language and put it down in the now therefore section so that it's an action.
It's fine.
I would propose, though, that we delete that recital, and that if there are, and that you would come back next year with whatever's out there, and we would look at it again. And decide
Well,
whether
that's the purpose of that statement, is that I will only be writing off 1 year's worth, which is actually 3 years ago, because I'm keeping the prior 2 years on the books in the hopes that they will still pay,
Okay. Well,
and writing off only the third year.
Okay, so there's a 2-year lag, basically.
I see what you're saying, okay.
Yeah, so the 142605 is from 3 years ago. Not from last year, not from the
18,000,
year
yeah.
before that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
It happened to me once last year.
Any other comments or questions on that?
I move to approve the resolution 2017-28, authorizing the village treasurer to write off $1,426.05 of delinquent personal property tax.
Okay, is there a second? I'll second. Okay, I'll second it. John, did you discuss?
Yes, I think in the future, I'd like to name this particular business that continues to not pay their personal property taxes
In the resolution?
in the resolution.
Or as an addendum or something.
Or
like that.
Sure.
whatever. Public should know.
Yeah, fair enough.
I would agree with that, too.
100%.
Okay. All right, anything else for discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. All right. That's 8. All right, so under new businesses, we've got reports from village boards, committees, and commissions. Police commission. Chief Labor?
Yeah, that was a meeting on December 7th of the Police Commission to interview applicants, police officer applicants for the sergeant position, newly created sergeant position in the police department. And after interviewing the officers, Dave Stortz was chosen as the new sergeant, effective sometime January of 2018.
Okay. Sounds good. Community Development Authority, John, or George?
It's actually
Nick.
Nick. So we discussed a different approach from staff to Aaron on looking at the Overlook Crossing, which is the property across the street here, part of the TID. Staff had provided some innovative solutions to perhaps approach either Horizon and was later discussed in the meeting, perhaps the other owner of property over there, the Wisconsin Bank and Trust. We directed staff to then approach Wisconsin Bank and Trust with this approach where it would be retail or commercial on the bottom and then perhaps upper floors of residential. Nick, I don't know if there's anything else beyond that.
Oh, you mean about our agenda? We did talk about the area that we would be looking at for making a CARPC application and discussed how many, or what parcels of land, when we're talking about the land that is north of the interchange, and what parcels of land we would want to have come in as part of the CARPC application. And the decision was made that all the land that's out there that currently has been annexed to the city, plus another parcel that Aaron's been in discussion, I think, with the owners, would actually come in as part of that parcel, of that CARPC application. And staff would move forward to do that. And that was part of the budget this year that we would undertake this.
Okay.
And we also reviewed a updated marketing packet that Aaron's put together, and I'll get that to the board members that haven't seen it yet. But that's just something that we get out there to prospective businesses, brokers, developers.
Yeah, we probably should say that when you bring forward a CARPC application, what that does is it's a review process for providing urban services for like water, sewer, and those sorts of services out there. So this is something that's reviewed through I guess it's an intergovernmental entity that we have here in Dane County.
Anything else on CDA?
What's that?
Anything else on CDA?
No, that covers it.
All right, Utility Commission, I guess horses and years, oh, there's JJ though.
The main point was Mike came and presented options for the lift station and force main project to get direction from the commission. Essentially, the lift station project is designed and they're instructed to be bid as MSA designed it. With the force main, essentially we're going to bid it 4 ways, all in the terrace, because basically engineers' estimates showed that open trench on Progress Drive push it way above the initial budget. So we'll look at 4 options, all of them in the terrace, and then the commission will determine, I guess, which one to ultimately opt for. I believe preliminary estimates show that only the high-end one goes slightly over the budget we've had since last spring with estimates. So we'll see when the bids come in.
One question. It states on here there was discussion regarding the water tower leases.
Essentially, that was just for early direction based on the company that came to talk about the internet option on the tower. And I was instructed to reach out to as many communities as I can and get comparables, which I've gotten a lot for cell companies, but not much for internet yet. And it was just kind of a really early preliminary discussion on the tack the commission will take.
We haven't received any kind of proposed draft from the provider to review yet, so I think the commission was just trying to establish what their negotiating strategy would be, or what their parameters might be that they'd be looking for.
Do we know what what is the timing that we have for this, or the provider, do we know yet, for being on the tower?
I don't know that we,
Probably
how
not
much,
until spring at this point.
but we just wanted to get out in front of it, let the commission know that this will be coming. So.
All right, this brings us down to the Plan Commission, item A, and the recommendation for approval did pass the Plan Commission by a vote of 4-3. As far as the presentation here tonight, applicants are here. If they would like to give a presentation first, and then the landowner, and then we do have some people that have registered to speak. So I'll let you folks come up first and tell us what's new.
Village President and members of the board, I am Kendra Meyer. I'm with Casey's General Stores. I am a real estate associate there. We're located and headquartered out of Ankeny, Iowa.
I'm Zach Michaels, and I'm representing Core States Group. We're the architectural and engineering consulting firm for Casey's. My office is located out of St. Louis, Missouri.
So I will go ahead and give a presentation. I will go through some background about Casey's and then also dive into why Cottage Grove specifically, and then also into details about the site. And then from there, if you have any questions, I can hopefully answer those at that time. So we were founded in 1968 in Boone, Iowa. We are a publicly held company, and we have just over 2,000 locations in, as of now, 16 states, 16th being under construction right now. We were built on the premise that small towns are a good place to do business. So just shy of 60% of our stores are located in towns that have under 5,000 people in those towns. We operate 2 distribution centers, and we do about 90% of our own distribution. Those distribution centers are one in our headquarters, which is in Ankeny, Iowa, and then one also in Terre Haute, Indiana, which just recently opened in 2016. In 1985, Casey's Famous Pizza was introduced, and then over the years, we've grown that fresh food selection now to include made-to-order sandwiches and some other additional items. Here's a quick depiction showing where our Casey's territories are, predominantly, again, in Iowa, given that is our hometown. We also have a handful of locations in the Missouri and Illinois area. As you can see, Wisconsin is I guess, one of the states that doesn't have as many locations as we'd like to have. And just recently, as we've made the effort to pursue growth in the state of Wisconsin, both organically and through acquisition. So as I mentioned, about 60% of our stores are located in towns with under 5,000 people. You can see the breakout between the 14% in 5 to 10,000, about 11% in 10 to 20,000, and about 18% of our stores are located in populations that are greater than 20,000 people. We had a recent change in our CEOs, and our current CEO has also seen the benefit of moving into those larger MSAs and being part of that growth plan as well. But of course, our history remains in some of those smaller town locations. As I mentioned, one of our distribution centers and our headquarters is located in Ankeny, Iowa, and we're also in the process of expanding this as we speak, mostly from our office perspective. And also in Terre Haute, Indiana. Again, this opened in 2016 to serve our growth as we move to the east. We pride ourselves in being a community partner and contributing to those communities that we live, work, and play in. This is a brief example of some of the charities and organizations that we've donated to specifically in the state of Wisconsin. This is not all-inclusive, but just again, a brief list of those that were more recent. We have some pinup programs that we do on an annual basis, Special Olympics being a strong one. In 2017, Casey's was named the Outstanding Corporate Partner of the Year by the Special Olympics. Quick facts, we are the 5th largest pizza chain in the United States, selling more than 19 million whole pizzas and 62 million slices per year. All of our pizzas are made fresh in the store. The dough is made fresh in the store, never frozen, on a daily basis. We offer sub sandwiches. Those made, again, in the store, made to order. We also have those that are made on a daily basis and can be picked up as a grab-and-go item as well, along with wraps and salads. We recently rolled out our online ordering, including an app, which allows you to order pizzas and other products that we make, and pizza delivery as well. We have a pizza to pump promotion right now, so any large pizza allows you 10 cents off per gallon. That is, if you order 2 large pizzas, that's 20 cents off per gallon, up to 20 gallons. We are also working on a loyalty program. For those of you that are familiar with Hy-Vee, we've partnered with them in other states, and it's applicable here, but we are also looking for a loyalty program that is specific to Casey's and not in conjunction with other companies, but that's in the initial phases. We hope to have something rolled out in the future. Each store creates 15 to 25 full and part-time employees, and Casey's ranked in the top 100 trustworthy companies by Forbes in 2017. This is an example of our menu, again, not inclusive of pizza. We have quite a variety of other options. Our donuts are made also in-store daily. We have a donut maker that comes in at 4 a.m. and makes those donuts every day. So it's something we're pretty proud of. And all this can be found on our website as well. An example of our made-to-order subs, like I said, fresh ingredients made there, as well as those that you can pick up there or add items to as well. So Cottage Grove, that question arose quite a bit last time, and not only were we attracted to Cottage Grove because of the size, but also its proximity to Madison, as well as we are currently in Verona and DeForest. One thing I do want to point out is that Verona was an acquisition location, so it's something that we will be converting a full interior remodel to. That was acquisition of a few other locations at that same time, so it'll be done over the next year. But it's not a prime example of what our brand is from a design standpoint. And then as far as DeForest too, being that is a close location, it is an older asset. So I'm excited to show you what we're proposing. I know that you have those documents in front of you, but I'll give you full renderings. So we liked the location of the village, given its proximity to other locations we have, as well as its proximity to Madison. The growth in Dane County leading the state in population growth, and then with Cottage Grove, we see the growth here, just shy of 2% between 2010 and 2014, and we anticipate that further growth, specifically by the location that we chose, with the residential growth being to the north, and we anticipate it would move to the west. That is based on the comprehensive plan, and then where we've seen those houses come up. And then our analysis, it's been brought up quite a few times, can Cottage Grove support another store? And I don't always have a black and white answer to that. I don't think anybody has a crystal ball, but I can tell you from 8 years of doing specifically convenience store, real estate development. And what we have as a company, we do have an analysis that from a high level standpoint, we look at population, we look at traffic counts that are site specific, and we look at competition in the area. And we have kind of a magic number, which we look at, and if we exceed that, and then we feel, okay, based on what we've seen in our development, we feel we can be supported by another convenience store in that community. If that number falls below what our quote magic number might be, that's when we might look at acquisition opportunities. An example of that was recently in Waterford, Wisconsin. We really didn't feel like another convenience store would be supported at that time, so we made the approach for an acquisition and have been moving forward with that. So the site location, again, specifically on Cottage Grove Road, we felt that was a strong alternative thoroughfare between Madison and Cottage Grove. Looking at those traffic counts, specific traffic counts were taken into consideration. And the residential density, as I mentioned, to the north, we always look at the comprehensive plan. We see where that commercial corridor looks like. We see what maybe anticipated future growth would be, whether it's neighborhood development, small or large scale commercial development. And we like to be near neighborhoods. We don't always designate ourselves as a truck stop. We have a few of those locations, but we like to be near residential locations because about 40% of our total sales are due from inside sales. So that would be our prepared food and merchandise items. And then going off the future growth too, noting that assuming that traffic counts continue to grow, that this might become a lighted intersection. We always look for a hard corner, ideally a lighted intersection. We didn't feel necessarily at this time that a signalized intersection would be required, but we do like that it is on a hard corner. So here are the proposed prototype renderings in color. Again, I know you have these. We're proposing just shy of a 5,000 square foot store. We have higher quality and natural materials such as brick and cultured stone with complementary colors. Some of these features are required for the architectural review and what the Village of Cottage Grove would like to see. We have variation in facade depth, such as a projecting entry, which you'll see on the next slide from a side view. And we used a pitched roof versus a flat roof for some architectural emphasis. And generally, we do like to do a flat roof, so we understand that this feels more as if it fits in with the neighborhood, and we're trying to appease that. Here are your side elevations, again, showing the different heights and variations. An example, this is, again, a very, it's a standard, and I have a virtual thing I'll show you here in a minute, but just an example of what our interior looks like. If you were to go to this, again, Verona at this point right now, you might not see this exact interior, but this is standard for all of our locations going forward. And our proposed site layout. So we have exceeded our landscaping requirements to visually aid in the site and act as a screening between the pumps in Cottage Grove and Sandpiper Trail and the pumps as well. We have a 7-foot proposed fence that will be on the north side of the property between our site and the residential neighborhood. And then per our last week meeting, we will also include additional trees in that area for more provided screening. We are hoping to promote further development with the remaining lots with the 2 shared access points that we have. So our design would include that we would completely, we would be responsible for filling out of all of this concrete. That side would end here, and this would be concrete here. This would be for future development. And we would again have an access easement in place prior to closing, and then we would have shared maintenance and snow removal costs to aid in future development as well. We're hoping that these shared access will help limit the number of excessive driveway access points, also cutting down on some of those concerns with pedestrians and walking, and hopefully keeping those to a minimum. And of course, given that we are not located in a TIC district, the tax revenue would be an immediate benefit to the village. This is very approximate, but it's an overall showing where our site looks from an aerial perspective and what could potentially be here for the future. These lots are currently based on the CSM that the landowner has provided us, That, of course, would be up to the landowner and developer on how they would like to split those lots if any of those sizes change. An example of our directional lighting at night. This is not the proposed location, but I wanted to show you exactly how we can maintain that, keep it safe, keep it lit and safe, but also contained in the property lines, which you can see here. So this would be site-specific, and you can see that we are maintaining our lights within the property lines so as to avoid spilling over and possibly leaking into any neighboring properties. And that is all I have. If you have any questions. And
Board members have any questions? Mitch?
Would you please point out where you are landscaping your parking lot area?
Sure. There.
And what type of landscaping you're using?
That's the landscaping.
You can find landscaping interior parking stall or interior parking area in these islands here and here, and there's requirement interior parking requirements within. I forget what the number is, but any of this landscaping we have all designed on this road. Sandpiper, and then in the frontage here in Cottage Grove, and as well as the two interior landscape islands.
And I will point out that the trees that we had discussed last week, those will be added. If we are approved to move forward, those will be added on the north side of the lot.
Right. These are our larger, you can see by their size, they're the larger screening trees required, and that would be in lieu of or in addition to this screening fence. There would be more rows of these larger trees, probably with intermittent evergreen trees in between, just to help with screening, because evergreen trees are always there for screening apartments.
Would you please point out where where the fuel will be delivered and where the deliveries will come into the building itself?
Sure. Fuel, these are the underground fuel tanks, these two. Sorry. These two structures right here.
We can't see where
Got
you're
it.
pointing.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry. They're on the east side of the canopy, the two spherical shapes right there. Those are both underground. They're represented by a concrete pad, so that's you won't even be able to see anything but the manhole lids on the side. So trucks can access off of Cottage Grove, coming west on Cottage Grove. They can access the trucks or the stops. And around here, this looks like a hard point that they wouldn't be able to hit, but this is just the canopy. It's above. We have clearance issues for that. Or the more likely scenario is to come off the Sandpiper Trail also, because we have a loading station right here for, you can see it's striped. There's no stripe, there's no public cars. We get people away from that. And the building's protected by bollards too. So that's our designated loading area for deliveries to the state or to the store itself, and then that is the fuel delivery.
So where is the delivery for the store itself?
This rectangle right here you see with striping.
So it's
comes
on
right
the,
there.
it's
On
toward
the east end of the building?
corner?
It's on the east end of the building, correct, right here. I don't know if but it's called out on the site plan too. If you want to know, not everybody has that right here, but it is a 14 by 54, 56 foot long strip right here, which is standard size and actually meets the requirements of the code.
And I'll just add on to that, as far as delivery for in-store items, that would be during day hours. We like to keep them generally in the morning because we do 90% of our distribution. We have control over that. Each truck carries between 6 to 7 stores, and they try and obviously make it back to the distribution center by the evening. So those deliveries will be done during daylight hours.
So how does that affect the, I guess, the traffic pattern on the site? They're coming in on this side. It looks like the only place you can really access your site, if you're coming from west and going east, is to come up Sandpiper, turn in there. But yet, are you going to have trucks right here on the edge here? And so you have to try to get around the trucks to get in here to...
No, the truck will always be parked either in the designated loading area, or they will be parked away from, there's no parking stalls at all. They would be located over this fueling, where there's a 24-foot area between the fueling station where they'll be parked and the curb line. So it's adequate for two-way traffic around the site if needed.
Another question. I know in your materials you stated that you expect to have 900 customers a day. At the Plan Commission, it was stated by our plan director that the traffic counts are about 8,000 now. With 3 convenience stores on the street, you think you're going to pull in like 1 out of every 9 or 10 cars that go down there per day?
That number is determined based on the site size, the traffic counts, and the population based on other stores and how those stores are performing. So we obviously, we do keep track of our customer count in every location that we have. And so that number was derived from those figures.
And what figures are you using to calculate that?
We were using the traffic counts that would have been from 2015 on the Wisconsin DOT website, average the population, and which I believe that I provided them an estimate of 2017, and then the site size, or the building prototype that we proposed.
I guess I'm more specific. What counts are you requiring before you put the store in? How do you calculate that? There's 8,000 now.
Right.
What counts do you need before you put a store in?
Again, this goes back to that formula I was talking about. It is, we will look at traffic counts, we will look at number of competitors, and we'll look at the population. So if we exceed a threshold and that means that if we have a higher population and a lower traffic count, sometimes those can balance each other out. Or if we have less convenience stores in the area, higher traffic counts, lower population, again, those things can change. So there's not a hard and fast number as far as vehicles per day. I've always liked to see somewhere around 10,000, but when you look at population, anticipated population growth, and the traffic counts are currently, it exceeded the threshold that we look at internally.
Did a little research myself on this, and I was seeing figures that were showing that you need between 2,000 to 3,000 residents per store minimum. With 5 stores in this area, how does it work? How are you coming up with the counts you think you need?
Well, I'm not sure where you found that figure. I will tell you that what we have internally is a different number than that. And what we have internally met the criteria we have met that number internally. So again, not a hard and fast number, but it's something that we have always used. I've got 8 other counterparts, and that is the number we use when we go through our presentation and it will go up through senior staff, and it is always reviewed. So I apologize if the information that you got elsewhere was incorrect.
I'm looking at where your store would be located versus the convenience store that's right up the street and the grocery store that's right up the street. It looks like that you're only less than a quarter of a mile from the grocery store and at most a third of a mile from the other convenience store. Do you see that as being an issue?
I really don't. Again, this is my experience in the convenience store industry and development, and oftentimes you will see 2, if not 3 convenience stores on one corner. Again, I don't have a black and white to tell you, but no, I do not personally see that as an issue. We don't look at ourselves as a grocery store by any stretch of the measure. We are convenience items if you don't want to go all the way to the grocery store. So we're not trying to replace a grocery store by any means.
I'll tell you what really troubles me about your site is that since 2014, in our comprehensive plan, we've had an illustration of what we expect to see on that site for development. And so on this side, I'm showing what is the expectation. If I flip it over to the other side, this is what I do, I put this together. If I flip it on the other side, what you're putting in here is almost 180 degrees opposite of what's in this plan. This plan shows trying to push up toward Cottage Grove Road, giving something I think that would look probably more like Metro Market if you go farther up into Madison, something that's more up on the street. So your site's clear here in the back. Basically, you've pushed yourself back probably about as far as you can instead of flipping it the other way. So on this plan, if you were building this under this plan, you would have your building clear up in the front. This plan also requires that, or strongly suggests that you would take all your deliveries from the back that your parking would be on the back, which you have on the front for the most part, that any parking you have would essentially be screened, either by heavy landscaping or by using a fence, which yours really is just looking right at the parking. I mean, the way I see it, when you're driving down, your parking's like mostly right there in the front of the store. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it looks like either we're going to need to decide tonight to go with what we have in our comprehensive plan, what the vision is, and more than likely what the residents here are expecting, or we're going to flip over and we're going to go with the Casey plan, which the Casey plan really drives something that's going to be putting everything toward the back, pushing it right back onto the residents, putting all the parking in the front. So whoever comes next to you is either going to have to say, wow, I'm willing to go with the vision and try to change the rest of the block, or I'm just going to have to try to meet the Casey plan. And to even do your plan, you have to come in and get a conditional use for your pumps. It's not something that was, you don't have a right to that. You have to get that, and you have to carry the burden for that. Explain to me why you don't come in with a plan without pumps that meets our requirements, because that's what we expect.
That's not our use. I mean, our use is it's a convenience store with fuel. So though we pride ourselves on our food and our other offerings, if only 40% of our revenue comes in or sales come in from the inside, we do need the fuel. That is our use. That's what we are proposing to you. We understand it's a conditional use. And I understand that the vision that you have for having the building towards the street, we deviate from that based on what our use is. And so in order for us to meet safety requirements, in order for us to meet turning requirements for vehicles, we have to put the site where it is currently located. We didn't push it back any further than necessary. It's the position that it is so that we can meet all of the requirements that we would need in order to operate our business.
And to speak, if I could speak about the layout of the building also, if we take into consideration all our surroundings when we put a site plan together, and one of them is that there are neighboring properties. On the flip side of things, if we were to bring the building all the way down to the south towards it, we would have to move our fueling canopies, the brightest piece of the whole puzzle, next to the neighboring properties. And I'm sure if we did that, we would get comments about why can't we flip the canopy away from those neighbors. So, and if we were to bring the building down here, we'd be completely eliminating any kind of access off of Cottage Grove. So we'd be eliminating one site and limiting our access by one single access point for all vehicles, all delivery trucks, just the overall flow of the project wouldn't be over.
And that additional landscaping that we've added that exceeds the requirement from the code is an attempt to try and help screen our pumps from both Sandpiper Trail and Cottage Grove Road. So again, doing our best to exceed expectations in that regard.
Any comments, questions from other trustees on that?
I'm generally concerned about the traffic flow for this particular area. We have a school just down the street, as you guys probably have seen. There's another school going to go in right behind that one, or diving across from that one. So the amount of children that are going to be running through there, you guys cannot control any of your patrons at all. Whether they drive, this additional screening, which is great, may actually be harmful for being able to see those little precious kids that we have in their community. So that's my concern with this particular state.
Yeah, I understand, and I would say the foot traffic is going to be there, I think, no matter what kind of development goes in. If you put a restaurant there, it might be actually increase your foot traffic for travelers too. Maybe a fast food convenience store, or a fast food restaurant, excuse me. So I think the foot traffic is always going to be available on site, so it's something that we can't reduce or minimize. I would say that I'm not sure how else to just
No, I totally understand that. I think that's one of the points Mick brought up from the comprehensive plan perspective, which is why we bring the buildings forward and try to keep the traffic behind, so the foot traffic is less likely then to encounter the actual
well, we will have
vehicles.
To help with that, we will. We got some comments from the village, preliminary comments on this, and to help with that, little bit of safety, I know every little bit goes. We have a proposed connection down here, sidewalk for the site, or ADA, but we realized we'd be crossing too many paths, too many vehicle ways. So what the new plan will address and we will implement is there will be a connection on the sidewalk on the east side of the building, next to this striped island, or this striped loading area, and that will be striped also. So it'll be an accessible path, a striped spot. We could, there could be a sign put in place for, for foot traffic, anything, but we're going to connect the sidewalk here to make it more accessible and hopefully more safe for, any kind of foot traffic around the site too. In hopes that no one's cutting across where the majority of your traffic is going to come with people coming in and out in the larger vehicles too. So it's one way we're going to hope to address a little bit more safety for the public.
Okay.
Yeah, I would concur with the safety of our kids being an issue, and a lot of people are getting gas and running into convenience stores at in the mornings on the way to work, at noon grabbing a bite to eat, or in the afternoons coming back, and that's when our kids are mornings and afternoons particularly are coming and going to school and coming from school. You pull out and you can only go west, so you're going to have to go over to Sandpiper to go east. Down the road, if there's that kind of traffic, are we going to be concerned with a roundabout, circle of death I call them, a stoplight, anything like that?
Mike has an
Sandpiper has a conduit in it for a future signal. So as it's been getting developed with Coil North and Coil South edition, it had been planned for a future signal. So the conduits for the electrical for that are installed into the roadway now. And at planning, I discussed there was a tripping point on School Road at N where we just recently put the signal in and hit the two commercial developments. So Rainbow Daycare and the Stop and Go. And once the Rainbow Daycare came in, there was enough development on the minor street and Main Street to say we've got warrants to put in a signal. The neighborhood depth at School Road on both sides is quite a bit more significant than the south leg of Sandpiper right now. So it may be a little further out in the future, but it's something where we'll keep track of what the traffic counts are when that time comes.
Is Sandpiper structurally designed, because I'm assuming that you're not going to have the same truck driver every day come in with loads of fuel, or when you need fuel. What if they continue to turn up Sandpiper? Is that going to tear the road completely up?
The first block of Sandpiper was anticipated for truck and commercial traffic.
Okay.
So the Sandpiper is designed right now to take traffic, and all of a sudden people that are coming down Cottage Grove, coming into Cottage Grove, that want to take a left into Casey's, the turn lanes are going to be there and everything's going to flow as evenly as it does now. That's one question. The other is, and I think John just answered this for me, but are we responsible then for paying for the traffic light when it comes time for that, or any kind of stop signs and stuff that has to be put in there at that point? That's the question I have.
Yeah, we would need to plan for that in the financial management plan. It's not in there right now. It would be when we'd probably want to start working on that.
And we can do that anyway, as that develops.
I think traffic light would end up there with or without this at some point. Any other comments, Mike?
Two questions I received from a citizen over the weekend. One, will you be applying for an alcohol license? And if so, what type of beverages will you have there?
Yes, we will, and I believe, and I can get back to you, but I believe it's beer only for off-premise consumption.
And the second question was, will you be selling tobacco-type products in your store?
Do you initially plan to be open 24 hours?
Initially, it was undetermined. We had agreed to having hours between 5 a.m. and 11 p.m. And then when we are not open, our canopy lights will be off, and we will not be able to pay the pump either. So.
Yeah, I know you don't have a crystal ball, can't predict the future, but if business grows enough, would you plan on being open 24 hours at some point in the future?
If the business grew enough, or if we felt like it was warranted, we would probably go the route to try. As we discussed again last week, though, that would have to go through the village process again and have to get approval. So it's not anywhere in the immediate future. We're not looking to make any enemies by staying open any later or opening any earlier than need be.
So I think your plan was 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. It's kind of same as a BP station.
And they're actually open late, I think, until midnight on the weekends. So we'll cut it even an hour off of that.
What do you plan to do to, I mean, you're open late, you know, compared to what you may have in there for some other retail uses, I mean, being open to 11. So the ocular effects of the lights of people driving in, how is that going to affect and what the homes that are behind there, and what are you going to do to mitigate that?
We provided the photometric plan that shows you exactly where the light's going to be emitted, and you can see if you have our property lines here, where the light stops. Property lines in red for everybody, they can see there. So there's no light pollution beyond the property line. So this right here is I mean, we're talking complete darkness behind us. That's to the north would be the.
My question's a little different though. If I'm driving down Sandpiper and I want to pull into to buy something there, there's going to be a sweep of the light when I come in there. And I have my lights on in my car, I'm pulling in. What are you going to, how are you addressing all of the, you're saying you could have 900 people, 900 customers a day. What are you doing to try to mitigate that sweep of light that's going to hit all those homes in the back?
The Sandpiper that's going traveling this way? The car that's coming up Sandpiper and
Correct.
right
Coming in, what are you
Well,
what are you doing to buffer that or to try to address the ocular
Well-
effects of all those cars pulling in?
Well, one, we're putting in trees along the entire property road that, as the request of everybody, and as well as a 7-foot screening fence, which is 100%. No light will be emitted through that fence. There's no crack. So, and we even talked about the elevation change between our site and the neighbors that are, there's a drastic difference. So I don't know how car lights coming up north would bypass both a fence, trees, and then the vertical distance.
Okay, thank you.
That plan you showed earlier did not have the trees to the north yet in there yet, is that
Yes.
correct? So if your fence went in, and say I live right behind that, are those trees gonna be on their side of the fence, so they don't have to look at a big fence?
The trees will be on to the north of the
North of
fence,
the fence.
closest to the neighbor.
There's also a 40-foot drainage easement running north of that between the properties. So the development takes,
You can
Show that
back
again.
to that one.
probably the other pictures were better.
Yeah, go back to that area. Right here, you can see that this is the property lines right here, and this is the drainage, large drainage area that separates our site. And our building is set back to here. And our initial, the 7-foot fence met the criteria. We had a 10-foot landscape buffer with a 7-foot. It's only required to be 6. We have a standard detail of 7. And it was discussed that we could either implement both or implement just the trees in lieu of the fence. So that's something we're willing to work on, but definitely put in some larger trees for screening, because we know that screening is an issue.
Well, would a fence and trees, I mean, a fence to me, I think would help with sound too, cars coming in and out of the.
Right.
We will do both. We will have the fence and trees. Yep. Trees being on the north side of that. And the only reason they're not in that plan is just because it was just discussed on Wednesday. So if we move forward with the approvals, that will be updated on our landscaping plan.
Would the trees be coniferous or deciduous?
I would assume there would be coniferous, there would be evergreen trees. Most, I would try to get, you can't get very large evergreen trees. Usually they're around maximum around 7 to 8 feet typically, because we want to implement them at larger sites, so they're effective when they're planted instead of being effective 5 years from now. So
And they're effective in the winter.
exactly, because they're always green, they're always provided. So, like I said, there might be some larger coniferous trees that do shed their leaves, but in between there, we might spread out more evergreen trees to help with the gaps and help with that kind of light as much as we can. So.
Any other questions?
So you're putting in 6 islands and how many pumping stations?
There's 12 total, so each island has a pump on either side.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
One question, Jack. Can you guys share what the anticipated approximate construction costs for the total build-out are?
So I guess that's another way to see this project also is working with Casey's internal designers. I know that the amount of sites that they come up with, potential plans for how many they do a year is pretty incredible, and the percentage of those that actually make it to this point is very small. So to get to this point, Casey's has a lot of belief that this is going to be successful. They're very comfortable saying this can be successful. And between land acquisition, building costs, construction costs, engineering fees, everything above it, they're willing to put multi-million-dollar worth of effort into this project. And they're willing and ready to invest that money now. So I don't know about you, but I think that's a pretty strong statement to say that they think this is going to be a successful site, and they'd like to turn that into local revenue. So.
And just to give you a more definite figure, we anticipate the store at the building itself. So the building equipment costs, canopy, tends to be upwards of $3 million, but site-specific or overall site, including site development costs, engineering fees, all of that, it usually is more around the $4 to $5 million range.
Thanks.
I'm just kind of surprised that you would be so confident in this when you look at our comp plan and it's 180 degrees different than, calls for 180 degrees, something 180 degrees different than what you're proposing.
I meant the success of the site in the location of Cottage Grove itself.
Yeah, I don't think his intention was to say that we anticipate full approval or that we're 100% confident right now. We're just saying that we strongly believe that this would be a good location, assuming we're able to get approval moving forward.
Thank you. We do have some individuals that have registered to speak. First is Kevin Metcalf.
I'm Kevin Metcalf, live at 412 Midland Lane in Monona. I'm one of the property owners on the site that Casey's being proposed on. About 12 years ago, we bought the property, and with a lot of promise, we actually had it designed. At the time, it was Mike Slaveny, but he had indicated it was probably one of the best designs he had. According to the actual overall comprehensive plan that you have, all the buildings were actually pushed against the back property line. There were a couple that were actually pushed against Sandpiper. The original design for the center had the curb cut off of Sandpiper. That was the only access point. So, they're asking for an additional access point as well. Godorsey, I think 12 years ago, probably started on their site as well. And with little activity, they've got the Princeton Club Express in there. We've had zero activity. We've actually dropped the sale price of this by $2 below our actually purchase price 12 years ago to try to get some activity on the center. I know people are talking about different tenants that they want, a Mexican food restaurant. I'm just asking, where are they? Godorsey's been vacant for 12 years. That he is not turning down anybody that I'm aware of. I haven't been turning down anybody that I'm aware of. Again, we're actually committed to the site to the point where we're dropping our sales price below, no holding costs or anything else, below what we even paid for the thing. It takes development. I mean, a lot of people don't understand what it takes to actually make something happen when it comes to some of these developments. And in my opinion, CVS coming down here, they stuck their neck out to actually come in on this side of town to actually do something. I think Casey's is doing the same thing. They're a quality organization. They have fresh food. They give back to the community. I think we need Casey's to get some activity going over on this side of thing. Without Casey's, I don't have the wherewithal to do a spec building over there like Dorsey did, and he still sits vacant. I mean, the Chipotles and all those guys in the world, they come in last. They don't come in first. So I think we need to spur some development here. And so I think you're going to hear about building location. My opinion, our original plan that we got rave reviews on had something very similar to what they designed here. It wasn't up front across, right up against the building. I mean, switch Piggly Wiggly around and take that building and put it on Cottage Grove Road. and put the parking lot behind it. It just, in some cases, those are, the plan that you have is not like set in stone. It's just used as a guide point. And so I think that our center that we had planned is very similar to the way Casey's designed and what your former planning commission approved. Stormwater, obviously lighting, that was all brought up. Safety, again, I had 24,000 square feet plus 2 outlots planned on this thing. And they got half of the site taken up with one store. I think your safety concerns are actually less unless you want, 26 tenants potentially, which, we've been trying to do that for 12 years, but I mean, that's a lot of activity. So I think from a safety perspective and having that extra curb cut, in my opinion, mitigates some of that. And kind of just one of the last couple points, there's an auto parts store. I don't need a conditional use for an auto parts store. They're snooping around. They don't sell gas, but would you, air freshener and a couple spark plugs, or you can go to Casey's and get some quality food, fill up your car, have some dinner. So I think they bring a lot to the table. So my hope is that you guys consider approving this tonight. Obviously, your staff recommendation says so. Your planning commission approved it as well. And I'm just hoping that it's something that you feel is a valuable asset to the community. I feel it is. In comparisons, when we talk about other stores, your staff did a comparison chart on that, and it says that most of the other communities, McFarland and so on, they have the same amount of gas stations. It's in terms of your population for how many stores that you have. So again, I appreciate the opportunity, and hope you seriously consider approving it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we do have some members of the public that signed up to speak. So I guess first is Tom Herring. And we ask that you try to limit your comments to 3 minutes in the interest of everybody getting to speak.
I'll do my best. My name is Tom Hornig. I live at 514 Galway Terrace here in Cottage Grove. I happen to be an attorney with Von Briesen and Roper, offices on Capitol Square, but I'm appearing just for myself for purposes of tonight. There are certain very particular standards that this board must look at to grant a conditional use permit. Those standards are dictated by the old, so-called old law, and I want to emphasize that because the application in this case was filed before the effective date of the new law, the effective date being November 29 of this year. Those somewhat relaxed standards are not in play with respect to this application. So I would urge the board to consult with Mr. Boucher, your attorney, and refresh your memory as to what the standards are for granting a conditional use permit for something of this nature. Let's talk about the need for filling stations here in Cottage Grove. I've heard it said so many times that there are only 4 filling stations here in Cottage Grove. We can certainly accept another one. I think that's completely missing the point. The main routes in and out of Cottage Grove are MM and N. We all know this. If you, BB and N. Pardon me, I got my alphabet mixed up. If you travel on BB from Monona Drive to the intersection with N, you come across, by my count, 6 filling stations, total of 46 pumps. That's what's there now. I've never stopped at any one of those and had to wait for a pump. And nor have I ever had to wait for a pump gas here in Cottage Grove, ever, in the years that I've lived here. By the same token, if you go from N, and counting the filling stations at the interchanges, go from 94 to 90, you come across, again, 6 filling stations and 46 pumps. And now you're being asked to grant a conditional use permit to add 12 more pumps to that. So with all due respect, there is plenty of opportunity to fill up our tanks, regardless of which major route we take in and out of the town. Convenience stores. I think you must ask yourself before you grant this conditional use permit, how many is enough? Do you know how many are here now? And what would this really add? Pizza places. How many more pizza retail sales places do we need in Cottage Grove? Do you know how many there are here now? Have you counted? And is one more necessary or desirable? Who will patronize the new location? I'm betting, and this is just strictly personal opinion, 80% at least will come from users of any and all of the three types of businesses patronizing what we have now, to the competitive disadvantage of your current business people. So now, if a new one succeeds, how many existing ones will fail in any of these categories? The Pig, Station at N and BB, others? And what have we gained if that does happen? Safety. I don't think safety has been nearly adequately addressed. School children are going to go through that area just like they go through now.
Thank you. It has been 3 minutes, but thank you. Okay. And I apologize, I forgot my reading glasses, but it looks like G. Salerno? I'm sorry. Did I get that right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Yashwan Salino. I live on 900 Sunset Drive. This is my first appearance here. I moved in 2011. I have a property. So my first question, I was wondering if there are any sort of plans for bringing internet services, the high speed. Currently we have only Spectrum for high speed for cable, and the rest of it is satellite and traditional phone connections. So I think we need more competitions, otherwise we are monopolized by Spectrum, which is not really good. My other point is I witnessed something recently. For the last 3 years, you'll probably agree with me, the diversity of the community is changing very rapidly. And in the meantime, some of the cultures, they do incline toward loud noise, music, and so forth. So the noise pollution is an issue. And so if we are proactive, can we somehow in the future revisit the noise ordinance during the daytime? So that's really my request. And similarly, the beauty. I mean, like for example, last summer, I have an issue, not personally, I tried to intervene between a couple neighbors, because one of the neighbors had a couch exactly on the front of the house, and there are a lot of visitors and noise. So the beauty also an issue also for that. So I would really like to see in the future to revisit the ordinance for keeping the beauty and the standard of the village, and also the noise pollutions.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Kevin Steffens?
I marked that I didn't want to speak, but I registered my...
Okay, you just registered against. All right. Bill Olson?
Jill Olson, 701 Sandpiper Trail. I'm here tonight to reiterate what I said at the Plan Commission meeting. I understand and support the need and the desire to fill us with a business, as it has been vacant for many years. I urge you to carefully consider several things in regards to this development. There has been an outpouring of input from residents stating there is not a need for another gas station or pizza place in Cottage Grove. How can you support something that citizens are not in favor of? This will have a direct impact on the current businesses in the village, and I strongly disagree with there being a demand for another gas station. The gap is not a result of the lack of places to fill up, but I think a lack of competitive pricing. I would like to confirm that the approved hours will be the 5 to 11, as I did not feel that the 24 to 7 service is needed. After seeing the design of this building, I would argue that it does not have a more upscale design and do not feel that it is aesthetically pleasing or fits with the look of the Coyle Highlands neighborhood. This development does not meet the vision of the comp plan set forth for the village. And I ask you, does Casey's contribute towards establishing and enhancing a positive image for the village? Does it encourage design, articulation, and layout that avoid monotonous strip development? I do not feel that Casey's meets the comp plan that the village does have in place. There is a concern for the underground gas tanks and the risk of gas spills, contamination to the soil and to the groundwater. 900 customers a day was brought up. I think the traffic concern, and as far as the GDS students, those are large concerns for me. For the future, I challenge you to think about the additional businesses that they're talking about putting in by Casey's, and would they choose to be by Casey's? If Casey's is a gas station, a general store that provides pizza and sandwiches, does this limit the businesses that would want that competition right next door to them? What if Casey's is unsuccessful? This would leave us with a vacant building that would have limited options for reuse, since it would have gas pumps and tanks that would need to be removed if it weren't used for a gas station. Additionally, I would question the transparency in this proposed development, as the notification was only sent to residents within a 200-foot radius. You can say that no one cared until it was in their backyard, but I can tell you from the outpouring of comments on the Cottage Grove Community Facebook page from residents across the village, the consistent message is residents care about what is best for the community and citizens. Again, I urge you to consider the public's input and concerns for the village that they live in before moving forward with this plan. I believe this is not the business we need there, and I really hope that you also read through all the emails that came in over the last few days as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That is all the people we had registered to speak, but as she mentioned, we did get some emails. Okay. Bro.
No, I was listening.
That's okay. Yep.
I'm Keisha Peters. I live at 500 Galway Terrace, right behind the proposed place. And same thing, I'd just like to reiterate what I spoke to at the Plan Commission meeting. Just, that, we're limiting what type of businesses we can have. Once a gas station's there, like Joe said, you can't put anything else there. The pumps are already in, the ground's already contaminated. So if it fails, we have no other option but to put a gas station back in there. Also, I'm curious as to, whether or not, we can get access to the leakage study that, Aaron, that you had referred to in the posting, and also environmental impact study, and what kind of, so that we can have that access to our knowledge. Not that we don't trust government, but I just would like to read it for myself also. And also, this is our government. This is elected positions, and we vote for all of you to be in place. And I just really ask that you would listen to the voices of the village, because so far I've not really heard any voices proving this. It seems like everybody is really against it. So, we trust when we vote for you that you're going to put our interest at heart, and that you're going to be our voice. And our voices have been speaking, and they've been speaking against this. I realize that the lot's been empty for a very long time. I realize that we need to get something in, but we also had, the whole entire construction industry, everybody, the falling, and that's why it's not so much, it was brought up in the Planning Commission, that everything's set vacant because we had such high standards, but that's not the issue. It was our economy fell. And so we're just starting to get that back up again, and so hopefully there'll be more things coming up. But, there's lots everywhere in the city of Madison and everything that have been empty for years. So I guess that's it. Just listen to our voices, I hope. Thank you.
We do have some emails here that came in. I believe most of them actually came in today, correct? But Tricia Hebert spoke against it and had some questions. I'm just reading these in for the record here, so we have a record of who sent in an email. Cassie DeVillers had some questions, and I believe spoke against it. Kim Sale, okay, also spoke against it. Joe Renzel, main concern looks like the gas pump issue and the pizza. Claire Hacker. Just asked us to look at whether we need another gas station. Lisa Fitch. They're questioning what Casey's would contribute to the economy. Kelly Stutz asked about the need for another gas station. Ryan Uleman, and I apologize, U-E-L-M-E-N. If I got that right. And he had a concern over another gas station also. And Shane Picker? Sorry. Yep. Shane Peters, sorry. And another gas station. Okay. Michael Stiller. Talked about an excessive number of gas stations. Patrick McDowell. Another gas station and the pizza delivery service. Another gentleman actually submitted one online on our form, Mark Jatzik, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, at Meadowcrest Trail. Asked about the need for another gas station. So that's their public correspondence. We can keep that on record.
There should be more.
Okay. These are the ones that got printed off unless people sent some in.
I know that several board
later.
members responded back to these other people I have listed.
Okay.
Yeah, Jack, I think
They were included in the packet.
Okay, so they're in our packet. Okay. All right.
If I can make a couple of comments. I truly appreciate everybody coming and voicing their opinion. This is how it's supposed to work. Great to get emails. There's so many times we have meetings here where there's nobody at all. It's just us. So I appreciate that. You know, it's a typical situation. As Mr. Metcalf mentioned, 12 years ago, he got that property ready to sell, and it's an open field. I've lived here for 21 and a half years, and I'd love to see some retail there. I'm not sure I'm in a position to sit here and say if we have enough or don't have enough gas stations or places to buy food, pizza, that kind of thing. I'm not sure that's our role. You know, we want to make sure that we grow our community and grow it in a smart fashion. As Mr. Metcalf said, we haven't seen any other opportunities. I mean, if you had a choice between a gas station and an adult bookstore, which would you want? We don't even have that choice. I'm not saying anybody's going to build an adult bookstore. I'm using that as an example, though, of where we're at. It's just, it's right now we're generating very little in tax revenue. It'd be nice to see more. I'm not sure if this is the right choice, though, but you know, we've got an election coming up, and make sure that you get out and vote, and we're supposed to be representing you. So.
On Saturday, I actually decided I would start walking this community to talk with people and see what their thoughts are or were on this. And there was not one person that was for having Casey. One person really that I talked to didn't really seem to care, but everyone I spoke to really did not show any interest in having Casey there. And I'll just show you what I handed out when I was going around. I just took the picture or the illustration that we have in the comp plan, and on the back I just put the plan that Casey has on the back. And it was, you know, I wasn't trying to persuade people to go one way or the other, but so it was no one in the area right over there by Casey that I talked to was for this. So I thought, well, I better go to some other neighborhoods and see what the response would be there. So I did do that. I went to some other neighborhoods here, and I got a similar response. Of all the people I spoke with, I only had one person that thought it might be a good idea until I flipped it over and showed this side, and it's like, I don't, you know, not really for having this Casey development here. I think this is one of the most critical decisions that we have made in a long time here. We have very few parcels of land in Cottage Grove where we can actually build something, or have, see something constructed, I should say, that really can really bring kind of that essence or character, I think, that we've been wanting here in the village. I think that, and I wasn't on this committee when this was done, when the comp plan was put together in 2014, but I think they got it right. I think what they have here is what we want to see. I think there's ways we can work to have this happen. An example would be if we would look at putting a tax increment district here, that could perhaps start to generate the need, or I should say the need, but perhaps could start to generate the interest that we're really wanting here for this property. I think if we go with Casey, we're giving up the vision. We're going to end up with something that the people here in the Cottage Grove and citizens are going to have to live with for the next 40, 50 years. You know, I know it's a tough decision to make, but there was a lot of effort put into this comp plan. This wasn't something people just did overnight. And for us to go at this point and to say we're going to put something that is 180 degrees different than what's in the comp plan, to me is just not appropriate. It makes me even wonder why I've spent the last couple of years working on the Community Development Authority to try to do something in this community to make it look and give that sense and feel that I think that we've wanted for a long time. If we do this, we've lost one of the key parcels of land to be developed in this community. I would propose that we start looking at ways to make this work as a board, but not with this project. Look what Madison's been able to do, and what's Madison's approved just up the road. What, 2.5, 3 miles? It's not a Casey, I can tell you that. The vision here was set in 2014. Casey knew what the vision was when they came in here. Casey's vision here, vision that the citizens of Cottage Grove have had since 2014 here. If we vote to bring them in tonight, we have voted a new vision for Cottage Grove. I don't want to be part of that Casey vision. I want to see something that's going to have a lasting impact and actually meet the requirements, or the goals, I should say, that we have in our comp plan. I mean, our comp plan discusses about how important this corridor is to us, and that what we put in here needs to really enhance the community. It's going to be the point that people will see when they come into the village. Do we want to have Casey be what folks see when they drive into this village? It's just not the vision that's in this plan. It's not the vision I hope to see for Cottage Grove. And I know it's tough because it's been sitting there vacant a long time. I think it's a call to action for this board to figure out a way to start to come up with incentives that can make this vision that we have here for 2014 become a reality, so that the landowner can actually be able to move forward with a project, or have someone that move forward with a project that meets this goal, this criteria. We discussed this at CDA just a week and a half ago or so about things we could do with TIF, ways we could look at stepping outside the box that we've been in for the last 15 years and start thinking about ways we can start to do things that other communities are doing to start to have this type of development. Look at Wanakee. Look at Wanakee. What Wanakee's doing on Main Street. The old Cultus lumberyard, look at what's happened there. You have Lone Girl. But look what's happening across the street. Wanakee's going to have a library. Next to that, they're looking at a $22 million development with residential, with retail on the front. They're thinking creatively as a village. I hope we can do the same, and I hope this parcel can become the development that really sets the standard and really brings us that sense of community that we really want to have here, and really be the vision that I think people have had for 4 years for this community.
Yes, sir.
This morning, when I woke up, I was very much thinking that this was a good revenue generator for us, but based on the community opposition and based on what Mick just said, I think I'm in agreement with him.
I'm going to have to say the same, primarily also that if I've learned anything over years of doing business, is to make decisions quickly off of emotions and off of fear. And I know that this property's been sitting vacant for 12 years, and I'm sorry for that. I feel pain there. But we have got Summit coming in. We've seen growth. We've seen Culver's here. We've got Shady Oaks coming in. We've got community growth that's happening, and out of that, I believe what you're talking about, Mick, has a really good chance of seeing the expansion in the direction that we'd like to see. Taking the time to really think things through smartly and say what businesses really fit this community, and just have a lot of faith and trust that they'll be there in time when it happens.
I certainly agree with what Mick, Jeff, Jim said, that I'm also very concerned about just foot traffic. And if you've got 900 customers going through, that's 50 to 60 cars an hour. That's a lot of cars. And you got kids running through there, and then kids are kids, they'll run right through your parking lot. And I can't be a board member and see a kid get hit.
Well, as far as the development goes, I mean, Casey's is not what I envisioned there, but I think when you look at what happened with the BP north of town, I think as Mr. Metcalf said, that was in the middle of the field, and now you've got somewhat of an urbanized corner there. You have to have something as an impetus. I would say I'm not opposed to it. It's not what I envisioned, but I did vote for the Plan Commission, and I would still support something there to get something going, and probably they've been more than willing to work with us. So,
Jack, we should probably close the public hearing.
Okay.
Now that we're kind of discussing.
All right. At 8:01, I'll close. We didn't open the public hearing. No.
Then you don't have it. My bad.
Okay. And our other board member's not here tonight. So I guess since it's on the agenda, I'm going to make a motion to approve the conditional use permit application for Casey's item 8A. Is there a second? If there isn't a second, then I guess the question dies, is that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, and then that would be the same for item 8B.
Well, then there could be a different motion.
Okay.
For 8A and 8B.
There's certainly been plenty of discussion. If anyone has any questions for Aaron on his staff reports, he can speak to those. And
okay. Does anybody have any question on the information you have from Aaron? On the conditional use permit? Okay.
Point of order on this, though. At this time, would it be appropriate to make a motion to deny and make findings?
Yes.
Are you referring to 8B, Mick?
I gotta go back and look at the agenda.
8A is the application for the conditional use permit. And B is the site plan approval.
I would make a motion that we deny the application for the conditional use permit for an in-service sales and service land use gas station fuel pumps for Casey General Store. And as part of that, as part of the findings, I would state that it does not meet the goals and the policies of the comprehensive plan that we currently have in effect for the planned business district.
Second.
All right, motion and a second then to deny the application for a conditional use permit for Casey's. Any other discussion? If not, all in
Can
favor?
we do a
say-
roll call, please?
Sure.
Could I, just as a, I meant to get to this tonight, but when we want a roll call, just ask the clerk to please call the roll, and then she'll call different people at different times, so you're not gonna always be the first one.
No, that's fine.
I know, it's a lot of pressure, but I just want Nick to have that chance, or Jack to have that chance. So we just ask the clerk to call the roll.
Alan,
No,
Conrad,
Aye.
or I'm sorry, aye, meaning that, yes, sorry.
What, yeah.
I don't want it, so.
Crawford absent.
I got
Elmore,
confused, thanks,
Aye.
Lee.
Henrik,
No.
Lindberg,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
so the motion passes 5-1 with 1 absent.
Okay. We need to do the same for item B then, Lee? Or-
I would make a motion that we deny the application for the site plan approval for Casey's General Store for a convenience store / gas station. And as part of the findings, I would state that it does not meet the goals and the strategies of the current comp plan for a planned business district.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to deny item 8B. We'll do roll call vote again, Lisa.
Conrad,
Aye.
Crawford absent. Elmore,
Aye.
Henrik,
No.
Lindberg,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Allen,
Aye.
5-1 with 1 absent.
Okay. Thank you. All right. That brings us down to reports from village officers. Is that correct?
We,
Actually, I think it brings us to the
Yeah.
7.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. We back up item 7.
May I suggest just taking a short, like 1 or 2 minute
Yeah.
break, let the room
Can we
clear out, just.
Be back in here by 10 after or
Well, I
so?
don't think- you know,
This
just
is a
take
different
break.
item about the police department, so it's not anything to do with this. This is item 7A, discuss and deliberate and vote on village ratification of the tentative agreement reached between the Village of Cottage Grove and the Wisconsin Professional Police Association Law Enforcement Employee Relations Division for a successor collective bargaining agreement. We have Mike Westcott, the labor attorney here, so I'll turn it over to Mike.
Just a quick briefing, just a brief memo in the packet. The village's negotiating team consisting of Attorney Westcott, myself, President Henrik, Chief Labor, and Lieutenant Matt Wagner met several times over the last couple of months to work through this, and there's a red line copy of the tentative agreement in the packet. You'll have noticed in the, we had planned a closed session, and actually, this is, for tentative agreements, this is done in open session. So I guess with that, Attorney Westcott's here to review kind of the high-level items and then take questions if anybody has any questions.
Sure. Everybody had a chance to look at the agreement in the packet? All right. I'll let Mike talk about how the process went here.
Sure. We had 3 meetings with the WPPA. At the conclusion of the last meeting, we reached a tentative agreement, which essentially means it's an agreement conditioned upon ratification by the union membership as well as approval by the village board. The union has not, as far as I know, taken it for ratification yet. The draft that you have before you, red line, is one that we've prepared. It has not been reviewed by the union yet to make sure that it's entirely accurate, but it reflects our understanding of the agreement. As part of the process, we look at other municipalities to decide and determine what they do with their police departments. Try to look at municipalities of comparable size, geographic location, tax base to the extent we can. Look at what their settlements have been, compare the village police department's wage rates and conditions against theirs to determine how we sit in terms of those comparables. So we went through that whole process. We also identified kind of a second set of what I would call secondary comparables, other communities that are perhaps further out, but perhaps more comparable in size to the village, Cottage Grove's police department. We also looked to see if there's recruitment or retention issues with the existing department employees. And our biggest concern was there has been some, what I'll use as a word, slippage in terms of where the department, where its wage rates compared to that of other departments that we compete with for labor. In terms of kind of the primary comparables, which would be like DeForest, McFarland, Monona, Oregon, Stoughton, Verona, Wanakee. The fringe communities were dead last, but kind of always been dead last. So the concern that we had was that if you look at where it stands compared to the average, it's dropped and it's kind of further behind, and we don't want to lead the parade, but on the other hand, we don't want to get too far behind it either. So based upon all those considerations and other settlements, we have tentatively agreed upon a 3-year contract with a 2% increase in January of 18, with an additional 1% in July of 18, and then the same settlement for calendar year 19 and 20. So it's what we call 2-1 splits. So there's at the end of the year, there's a 3% lift or increase in the wage rate, but the cost to the village is approximately 2.5%. And if we look at the other contracts that have settled for 2018, it's basically right in the middle. There were 2 settlements at 2%, there were 2 settlements at 3%. So it's from a wage standpoint, we think that the proposal is a reasonable one that makes sense with the comparable communities and will kind of avoid some of the slippage that's occurred in the past.
If I can ask.
Yes, sir.
The wage increase, do they also get a cost of living increase?
No, that's the entire increase, is the 2 plus the 1. Now, there are some wage steps that are built into the contract that cap out at 10 years. And so, for example, if I'm a 1-year officer, I could get, in addition to this contract increase, an increase by virtue of moving from, 1-year step to the next step. But other than that, there's no additional types of merit or performance increases.
But those weren't negotiated.
Right, those are in the contract.
They weren't renegotiated.
Correct.
Right. Mike, could you also tell them initially where the union position was as far as the percentage they were?
Yeah, they in terms of like their initial proposal.
Right.
Yeah, they were looking for, I think, a 3% first year, 4% the second year, and 5% the third year for 2000.
And the goal was also the same as ours, was to minimize or mitigate some of that slippage, but you felt this was a better alternative.
Yeah.
And to provide like budgetary context to that, every 1% is about $7,000 impact to the budget. The tentative agreement as it stands, we can afford that within the approved village budget.
And there are other, again, changes in the contract, but they're more language types of changes. So if anybody has any questions on them, I'm happy to address them, but I'm not sure you want me to go through them one at a time.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, sir.
Nick?
You know, when I look at the steps, though, these are pretty significant steps.
The current wage
Yeah, I
steps?
mean, from start to first year, it's like over an 8% increase in salary. I mean, that's where you're making your increases is each year that you stay with the department, and you move up from year 1 to year 2 to year 3 to year.
Yeah, it's
That's
fairly
pretty significant.
Yeah, it's fairly typical for collective bargaining agreements for protected services to have, especially at the off probation rate, usually the first 5 or 6 years have the largest steps, and then after that they're usually fewer and far between. I mean, there are some departments where there's steps that take you out to 20, 25 years. This one caps out at 10. And I think you go from 5, and then you don't get one until 7. Then you get one at 10, and then that's the last one that you receive.
I just want to point out, you start at 21, 28, you're getting, over the next 2 years, you're going to get like a 16% or more increase in your salary. And I'd say very few people get that over that period of time.
I don't disagree. I would disagree when it comes to police departments.
And you're also stepping up, so that's pretty significant.
Now, those steps and those, other than us increasing the steps equivalently, okay, in this case, each of those cells, if you will, would go up by the 2% or the 1%. Those steps themselves and kind of the increase from step to step have existed for years in the contract, so none of that is new.
Chief Labor, if I can ask, have we lost people because of wages? Do most officers switch jobs to get better pay, or do they like the community they serve? Do they like the organization that they're in?
I think they like we haven't lost officers since I've been here, but before that, yeah, we lost several officers to other departments such as Wanakee and Capitol Police, and yeah, they pay more. They pay a lot more. But I think the officers that stay here don't stay here because of wages. They like the community they're working in, they like the police department. It's just a good working environment for a police officer. It's a nice community, and there's enough to keep you busy, but not too much where you're actually running from call to call and not having good interaction with the community. They are the lowest paid 24/7, I think, law enforcement agency in Dane County, though.
Right. To Mick's point of the percentage of increases, and right now, and I don't have the stat in front of me, but I want to say 40+% of our budget is policing. Do they know that someday they could price themselves out of a job, that we could contract with Dane County or someone like that and get it done less expensively?
That's a whole different topic.
Well, the point being, though, if you keep going with these types of increases, that's when you look at our total budget, it's a big chunk of our budget, and they're continuing to grow it at a much higher rate than the rest of the items on the budget.
I think it's a selling point, though, to people moving to the community, having a police force, and when you look at the comparables and the fact that we're the lowest or one of the lowest, if they want to live in Dane County, that's kind of the going rates.
Do these numbers incorporate other negotiations that are going on? We aren't going to know that with these other communities. So if they're coming back for their 2 or 3 year cycle or whatever,
Right.
we're just assuming some rate increase for these other numbers for other communities. correct?
Right, we only know the ones that have in fact settled versus ones who either haven't started yet, because, we're all on different tracks.
Absolutely.
So we know that, for example, Fitchburg and DeForest settled in 2018 for 2%, okay? And we also know that Verona and Wanakee settled for 3%. And we know that, you know, Wanakee pays its starting officers, you know, $1.80 more than here. And when they go from a start rate to a one-year rate, you know, they're going up $1.12, whereas in Fitchburg, when they go from the start rate to the one-year rate, they go up $4. So it's kind of all across the board. You know, and the hopes, of course, is that, you know, when you replace an officer, so if you have a 10-year officer and he or she leaves, and if they're making $30 and, no, excuse me, if they make $24.29, I keep changing my number, $27.61 currently, that, you know, and you replace them, that person is going to be getting increases, the incumbent, but they're going to be coming in at $7 an hour less than the person that was left. And so, you know, they catch up faster, but there's kind of savings when it's a turnover situation as opposed to adding numbers to the department. I do want to mention that I was just doing some calculations beforehand, and just to give you an idea, if you just looked at the 2017 rates for the 8 primary comparables and compared them where they are now to where this department will be at the end of the contract, December 31st of 2020, there's still anywhere between 7.4% and 14% less than the average. So it's still there's still a significant difference in that regard.
And another point, Troy, in the past contract, they gave concessions to the village to get pay raises. So they contributed more for the retirement system. And it ended up being pretty much a push for pay raise versus additional contributions to the village. So they really didn't get a pay raise per se in those past 3 years. I believe that's how it worked out. But yes, when they retire, it's definitely better to have a higher wage rate. But the village, and it's pretty much a push, I think, the past 3 years on wage increases.
I think the other thing certainly to consider is we want to keep, you know, talent here. They know the community, they know the issues. So you don't want to have a, you know, a situation where you have a bunch of turnover. And so if we're not, you know, I can see the other side of the coin here is if we're not keeping close to those other communities, you know, it's just another drive down the road to reach the next station. And that would be my concern. Particularly as we continue to battle the ugly things that are going on, from opioid to all kinds of really crazy things.
Any other comments, questions from Mike? We basically caucused several times in each of these meetings. They had a proposal, we had a counter proposal, et cetera. I am fairly certain they're okay with what we ended up with, the police union. Commission?
Chief, what percentage of your budget is for employee expenses? Do you know?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Of your entire budget for the police department, do you know what percentage of that is for employee wages and benefits?
If you're talking about officers and then non-union members and administrative staff?
I'm just curious.
I don't have the budget right in front of me, obviously. It's $1,357,000. I'd say more than half.
I was going to say 80%.
I just see, I mean, these wage increases definitely have an impact on our budget. And I see it, I mean, you get out to year 10, they're pretty small, and it's a fairly small amount, but the first few years are pretty significant increases.
You'll also notice when you see advertisements for other police agencies, when they're hiring, starting wages, probably 10,000 more than we start off officers at. And their compression on a lot of their wage steps is 3 or 4 steps, and they get to them really fast. We spread it out over 10 years.
Okay.
I'm trying not to be an advocate because I don't believe that they're not getting anything they really shouldn't get at this point. I don't think we went overboard, and frankly, I think they probably think they didn't get what they should have gotten. But like the attorney said, when we both, I think the labor attorneys or labor negotiators said when both walk out somewhat unhappy that you met your goals, I guess.
One other question, Matt, is this already budgeted into the 2018 budget?
Yeah. There's actually a little bit more, so there's a little bit under.
And to your point, Chief, just wages, we don't know what their other communities are doing for contribution, what the individual is paying for insurance and the other things that you discussed earlier, correct? That is it apples for apples? You know, we're talking wages, but you said the last negotiation is they got more money, they have to, you know, pay more for health insurance and stuff.
Yeah, I see them. I see the chief's survey every year, and it's
The
pretty
data
common.
we have there doesn't show what they're contributing to health insurance. Is it really apples for apples? All we're looking at is wages. We're not looking at their contribution to insurance and things like that from the other communities.
I've looked at it with respect to the bargaining agreements, if that's your question, versus the non-reps. But yeah, and from limiting it to the big ones, which is kind of the retirement system, as well as the health insurance, we're not leading the parade in that regard. So it's not like, you know, we're in last place, if you will, on wages, but leading the parade on, you know, benefits and some other things of economic value in the contract. That's everything. The other key ingredients in here are, you know, on par with the others, or less. Okay. And we have, I have all the collective bargaining agreements for them if you want to look at that, you know, if you had any specific ones you want to check into with that.
Thank you.
Anything else for Mike? Thank you.
Sure. Would you like me to leave that binder in case anybody wants to reference it?
A little light reading for someone?
You know, it looks like a lot of really exciting reading.
I recommend doing it at the end of it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Matt, anything else on our process? I mean, like I said, it's budgeted. I felt we got to where we needed to be. Like I said, 3 meetings. So at this point, I'll make a motion that we approve the village ratification of the tentative bargaining agreement reached between the Village of Cottage Grove and the Wisconsin Professional Police Association Law Enforcement Relations Division for a successor collective bargaining agreement. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Mike. So when do we hear from them, do you think? I mean, if we ratify it?
I will call Jerry tomorrow to see where they're at.
Okay.
But I need to get the final contract out to them so they can make sure, because that's kind of what they'll use for ratification.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think that now brings us to clerks and village officers. Troy?
No report.
Okay, Nick?
No report.
Okay, James?
No report?
Jeff? John?
Ditto, no report.
Okay, the only thing I had, you'll see under my name here is appointments to committees. I had a chance to meet with Jeff, and we talked about 3 committees. And now I guess given current events, we may do some more juggling, based on the memo you had in front of you about the forest resigning. So, but at this point, I guess I would like to nominate Jeff. I think we talked about Pier Court Steering Committee, the Nat Big Landfill, and the Joint Fire Committee, is that correct?
Was it Joint Fire? Is that the one?
It was one that Larry Shinneman was on according to the sheet, but you and Troy are doing that, right?
No, Joint Fires was forced.
Yeah, no, this was emergency government.
Emergency government. is
Oh,
what Larry was
emergency
on.
government, yep.
Yeah, nobody likes going to those meetings.
Okay. So,
Give it to the new guy.
Don't tell him that, yeah.
all right. So are you're okay with those?
Sure, yeah.
committees then?
Yeah, and the possibility maybe Parks and Rec too.
Yeah, at least one meeting.
Yeah.
Are we supposed to have 2 board members at every committee?
On a Parks and Rec, it
So we
varies
only
from
have
one
one.
committee to the other. I think Parks and Rec is just one.
Just one. Oh,
Yeah.
just one? Yeah.
Yeah,
all right.
and obviously if the 2 of you want to work out a mutual swap that works for you, let me know, because everybody's got different personal schedules and things like that. We can make some changes, and obviously there's going to be some more changes, so. So if that's good with everybody.
Question there, Jim. Are you the chair then? Of Parks and Rec?
Yeah, I guess. I
Okay.
kind of do share it, yeah. Right? I mean, yeah.
Run meetings.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, there you go.
Say it with confidence.
I'm not sure if that creates any issues in alternates as far as doing it half and half, being the chair. That's just the only,
Well,
off the top of my head.
I think that if you're proposing any kind of change, let's talk with Lisa in particular. She's kind of the czarina of committees. And
She's got
writes for
the
all of us in
spreadsheet.
terms of, appointments, that type of thing, and then we can decide if there's an issue or not.
Okay.
Okay, so at this point, we got Nat Big, Pier Court, and Emergency
Show up,
Government.
and then We'll take it from there, play it by ear.
Yep, I'll be at the next
If you
one.
want to swap and give me something else, that's fine too.
Okay.
All right.
It's a fine, super group, but.
All right, if that's good with everybody, then I will put Jeff on those committees, and we'll start there, and we'll see what happens with
Need a motion.
I'll make a motion to appoint Jeff to Pier Court, Nat Big Landfill, and the Emergency Government.
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second to appoint Jeff to Pier Court, Nat Big Landfill, and Emergency Government. We have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Welcome to the jungle. Yeah, Attorney Lee Boucher.
No report?
Okay, Matt?
A couple of things that came up at Plan Commission, and I think we could better help the process, like the conditional use permit, kind of the Plan Commission type items, and that would be adding a podium or lectern so that someone coming to speak can stand and speak to that, and then the applicant or additional staff person could remain sitting at the table, so we don't have discussions going into,
Right, so
into
we
the
could
crowd.
have the presenter be able to answer the questions of whoever's speaking, is that what you're?
Yeah.
Just a
That
little
was
more
a comment at Plan Commission, I think that would be worthwhile. The notice provision also came up, you mentioned it, one of the comments about transparency and how there was a desire to have maybe more of a distance. Our ordinance says 200-foot distance, every property gets noticed for conditional use at that distance. And the Plan Commission, I think, may take that ordinance up for review to discuss that further, so maybe expanding that or using a different mechanism. And then to speak to Mick's comments, the CDA actually, I don't know if you remember, Mick, I think we had one meeting where we discussed a potential TID creation or what a TID could look like in the area where Casey's was looking. And so, you know, we certainly could continue that again. I think at that time, the decision was to focus north of 94, and that kind of just fell by the wayside. So that certainly can come back forward.
Okay.
That's all.
All right, Aaron?
Matt stole all mine.
All right, Chief Labor, anything else?
Nothing.
JJ, anything from Public Works?
Actually, just a brief, if you remember the individual that came in with the pothole complaint, he had his day in court last week.
Wow, that took a while.
And yes, almost a year. And Lee, correct me if I say something wrong, but essentially the court commissioner did not allow or buy our immunity as a municipality.
Well, he didn't,
So- or
he didn't embrace it, but
Yes.
we still won.
Okay, so yes,
That's the bottom line.
My point is that even with that viewpoint, our foreman, Marty, got kudos from the court commissioner and the attorney representing the village because they couldn't show any negligence because it was reported, he came in and filled it within an hour. And within an hour, he'd actually emailed me what he'd done Christmas Eve last year. So it's just, we've got some good employees here in that one
Yeah.
particular guy.
Marty definitely carried the day, much to the chagrin of the attorney who was frustrated with the court commissioner and kind of aired it to
Well,
me.
good to hear.
Yay.
All right, that brings us down
A
to
win's a win, right?
discuss approval of vouchers. Any comments, questions, or corrections in the vouchers?
I move to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the vouchers as presented. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Correspondence, I don't believe I have anything official. Everybody's got a new blue book. I'm sure you'll love that. Future agenda items, I probably
should discuss what we're gonna do with Forrest.
Yeah, I'm gonna put commission stuff on there again. I mean,
But also, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna throw that on the next election as a one-year
I was
term?
thinking about that, but that's a long time.
I mean, yeah, we can have some ideas for the next board meeting, which is,
But I think, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
try to put it on the agenda to discuss it.
yeah, just decide what we want to do with it, if we want to, how we're going to handle it. Okay, so that's two things, committees, commissions, and the vacancy for the trustee. Anything else?
Swearing in the
Fire chief.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's three things, anything else?
The TID issue for this property, I'd like to see us take a look at that as soon as we can.
For going west and, okay.
Yes, down Cottage Grove.
Sure.
We can put that on the next CDA.
You want to start with CDA on that, or?
I defer to Matt, I guess, what he'd like to do.
Trying to think of the timing. Yeah, I suppose we could do that and still have a report for the second board meeting in January. So just not for the next board meeting, which was gonna be a special, separate date. We're doing the first Thursday.
First Thursday,
Yeah, the fourth.
I was trying to recall where we are at with the 5,000 square feet where the tenant's moving out. Is that something that's coming up in January for us to look at, or?
It is, Parks and Rec is going to tour it and start making recommendations that way.
But they're supposed to be out at the end of the.
Okay.
Right, they'll be out at the end of the month.
Yeah, it's January 24th.
Does that mean you're gonna be?
Okay.
That they will be out, I received an email, I couldn't remember, they said they're gonna be out of the Bonnie Road building within a week or two, but I provided them 30 days notice on that, and they'll be able to meet that. Yeah.
JJ, you're gonna use that space, right?
Yes.
I just have a question. TIDs, do they have to be contiguous? I was just thinking the UW Health building, the old building, that couldn't be wrapped in with the TID you're talking about, right?
It would have to all be connected.
Oh, okay. Then we have to-
They do have that up for sale, and
They do have it up for sale?
there's a
Have you
broker
heard?
working on it.
Okay, there's no sign in front of it, is it? Or is it? But they just have it listed with a broker?
Yeah, I've been in touch with the guys.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I
It's
guess
progress, at least.
one other thing, talking about the used to be things, has there been any updates on that Vilas Road, the old pump station property? And I know we determined we couldn't split it into two lots and that kind of thing, but last I understood, we were talking to maybe someone if we wanted to trade that property for something else. or-
If they wanted to.
Right.
Because it's useless to sell. We can't sell it, right?
I don't know.
Other than the home.
Yeah, I don't know if anything would be built on it.
Right.
Kyle had made a couple of contacts, and I think he's just waiting back to hear if there's any interest.
Yeah, it just sounded like there was some interest, but.
I'll talk to Kyle again, see
Yeah, I haven't heard
if he reached back out. It was with Andrew Homburg.
Anything's
Yeah.
better than nothing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We don't want to say that to them,
But now we have.
You
so-
just did. Yeah, thanks. Blew it.
Anything else?
Good
but.
for
Listen
you,
to
Mike.
meetings, yeah. He
Anything
listens
else?
to me. Nobody's listening.
If we've got nothing else, that brings us down to adjournment.
Oh, just so you know, the closed session that was on here is following up on discussion of some revisions to Matt's contract. And so we'll have that on for next time. It was a question of getting that all put together. And so we'll bring it to you in the first meeting in January.
Okay.
I move to adjourn.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn, not debatable. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We're adjourned.